Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is Kushalmehra. This podcast was designed for a specific reason. Today, if you're going to be listening to the audio version of this, or you're watching the video version live right now, first of all, I will state the reason why I'm doing this. A few days ago, I had gone somewhere, and some things happened where I had gone, and after I came back, I was very uncomfortable. I was going through the phase of not being able to sleep properly, where I was disturbed constantly, and then I was letting it go, letting it go, letting it go, and then it came to a point where I could not let it go, and then I started doing something about that, the thing that I had seen wherever. I can't state it because of obvious reasons. And then something happened on social media and it triggered me even more. And then I started reaching out to women that I know on social media. And we just had an, I'm actually very grateful to all the women who have come here today, because this podcast would not have happened if they would not have helped me. So I'm really grateful to them, and I reached out to them and I asked them for help. I was like, what can we do to address this issue of sexual predation that is rampant? uh, I don't want to get into where it is more, where it is less, which set does it more, which set does it less. I could care less about that. So that's why I tweeted out on social media, where I had requested women to reach out to me either on social media or privately through the email. And believe me, I got a lot of emails and I have replied to each and every one of them. And if you emailed me, that I replied to you and I read everything. I'm not going to take their names or share anything, because those things, it was a shocker to me that some of the the emails that I got were occasions where some women said that we have actually never mentioned this, it is only you we have emailed this to. So I'm grateful to all of you, and I promise you that it stays between us. But it was a heartbreaking thing to read whatever happened. But then I was like, बात करनी चाहिए. And believe me, जितनी बात मैं अभी बोल रहा हूँ बस मैं अभी बोलने वाला हूँ. बाद में I'm just going to hand it over to the women on the podcast. And one thing, because there is going to be a live stream here, I am crystal clear and I want to start this. I see one abuse on the live stream, and I know this is also going to be heard later. I will block you. No if, no but. So be very careful. If you're on the live stream, don't try something that will get you blocked on the channel, because you may not get access to the content later. I don't care who you are, I will block you. And I normally avoid these things, but this is a sensitive topic, so please be serious. Today's topic is not, again, I have not designed the way it is going to go. I took feedback from multiple women, obviously not just the women who are here who are going to be sharing, because we have different, these women will bring in different perspectives. And everything is decided based on consultations with not just them but many other women, especially Smita Barua. She helped me a lot. I was constantly asking her questions on WhatsApp. Smita ji could not come today, so I just had to take her name, because she really guided me and she helped me a lot and gave me a lot of courage too. She's like, nahi, tu kar, I know you should do it. And so now that I have said whatever I had to say, so first I'll come to you, Shivangi. On the issue of sexual predation, can you maybe break it down on the sociological level and what exactly happens? Like, maybe we can start, Shivangi, with defining also, because there's a lot of confusion when it comes to defining these things also. So first, Shivangi, I'll come to you, then maybe I'll go to Nanika.
Sure. Thank you for doing this, Kushal. And quickly getting into it, I think I will frame this whole thing around of course, defining what it is, and then moving on to what are the theories and like how do like why does it happen? Like that's the larger question, right? Why do men do this? Why do women freeze, etc., etc.? So now making it very like as layman as it gets, sexual predation or predatory behavior is when men are harassing women to get sexual contact in an abusive manner, right? Now, what is that sexual harassment? It could include catcalling, it could include gestures, it could include sexual jokes, innuendos, unwanted advances, flirting, intrusive questions about person's private or sex life, or like spreading sexual rumors, touching them inappropriately, brushing up against them, hugging them when they don't want to be hugged, stalking, etc., etc. Now, sorry, my throat is gone today. Um, if you look at it from like the theoretical perspective of what are the approaches to violence, because when I talk about sexual harassment, that is violence against women, there are three large theories that are there. One talks about the psychiatric or psychopathological analysis, which says that it is because they are going through some psychiatric issue, which is why they are trying to be violent towards women. Another one is which talks about the fact of a psychological phenomena, which is that there is some external stress that is creating environment factors, right? So, and that is why this is happening. And the third, with which I, as a like a feminist social worker, talk about, is when you look at violence as a sociological or a socio-cultural phenomena, where you're saying that there is a socially structured inequality and cultural norms. And so we have to talk about patriarchy, right? So the fact that men hold power and domination in this gender power relation, there is an inequality, and violence against women is therefore manifestation of that unequal relationship between women and men. So the fact that you've been socialized in a certain manner, there are certain gender roles. Now here I'll bring up the point that men feel that they're more masculine when they are doing this, right? I am a man, I can harass you, I have a sense of impunity, and that I this is what makes me a man. This in my boys club will be accepted, and I will be celebrated for who I am. Because as in terms of defined role in the society, masculinity then is uh, how are you harassing, right? Or how, oh, this is just a joke. um and other than that, there's another understanding of it, is which women come to it saying that, why am I like, I know I have been harassed, I know this person is doing something in the office, in a public space, oh, but I don't want to tell anyone, or how do I approach it, right? And that is actually the theory of learned helplessness, which talks about that once you go through something, and a battered woman, she becomes passive in the face of intermittent abuse, which means that she will be immobilized, and because of the uncertainty of when abuse will occur, so she will feel like she has no control over her experience. So it's almost like she's conditioned to tolerate abuse from the community, and then she is held responsible for violence. Now here there are a lot of cases that will happen where they'll be like, why didn't you speak up, right? Like, I understand men are doing this, you should go out, why don't you go to the police, there are so many formal help seeking behavior, why aren't you doing that? But that's actually because you go back to the good and bad woman ka binary in the system, right? The good woman will not go to the police. The good woman, hum nahi jate police mein, hum nahi jate lawyers ke paas. That is not what a good woman does. There is a strong culture of silence, that this is, I will take this. Even if they want to go ahead and approach the police, approach their HR, approach the person in question, who is actually taking their side there? Because in the structure of power, the man, of course, by virtue of patriarchy, or by just in terms of the person is senior to you, or the person in an organization, or the fact that they are attacking you in a group space, you are fearing violence, and fear of violence is violence. So you want to protect yourself, and you don't want to speak up in that situation. Even if you want to speak up, from the police will question why. For example, are you a good victim, right? What were you wearing? Why were you drinking? Why were you outside? Oh, so you were in the office with this person, and he did say that you guys were talking to each other, etc., etc. So they actually reach a space where they also understand that, who will support me? And this is a question to, of course, people who I saw were commenting on your post on Twitter regarding this space. I mean, I asked that very clearly. Who are you going to support in this past struggle, right? If there's someone influential, like, for example, you went through something, like having the ability as a bystander to not be passive, but actually take a stand in that situation and be like, listen, man, this is not done. it requires a lot of courage, but it also requires a lot of moral character, right? Do you feel this is correct to take a stand for your friend or take a stand for women who's going through something? And in the sense, like, how do we stop it, right? And what can men do? Because I want to take the onus to the men who are listening to this podcast, right? Like, and the only thing that actually comes from it is bystander intervention, because which is, you notice the event, you interpret that the situation is a problem, and you go in there and you say step up, and you stop and you ask for help. And this has proved that when you have active bystanders, when a woman feels that she will have someone standing up for her, and that she can speak up, that's only when this problem will go down. Because at every space, be it the family system, where why were you loitering, why were you going out, going from your own parents or your brothers or your husbands, and then moving on to religious spaces, or moving on to police spaces, or where you get your help from, there is a sense of learned helplessness that women learn, that our stories have to stay only in whisper networks. For example, when you put this out, that is a whisper network, right? Oh, this happened with me, this happened with my friend, right? Also, to understand that when someone is a sexual predator, there is like a power and control wheel that comes into it, which we talk about in violence against women, which is that what techniques do they use with women in order to harass them in a space. So you could have using technique like using isolation, so controlling what the person is doing, right? Limiting their outside involvement, minimizing and denying and blaming. Oh, no, no, gaslighting, this is your problem. Using the male privilege, right? This is what they're doing right now, that you're treating the person like, oh, she can't be trusted. Using coercion and threats, and using emotional abuse, intimidation. And this is the same across, and I say this left and right, that there is a strong sense of impunity that comes from for men who are inflicting, and I say the word violence, and I want to articulate it like violence, because this is violence that is going on with women who are facing it on a daily basis. Now, do you want me to go ahead on what women should do, or should we take ahead the discussion and then?
No, no. So what we'll do is now I'll request Nayanika to come in, and because the interventions maybe we can come, but Nayanika, I have a request over here for you, that obviously in your practice, um, what have you seen, as in in your practice as a psychiatrist, what are the things that you see at a cognitive level? What is the psychology of men, and what are the traumatic effects that women go through when such an event happens?
Kushal, I'm really glad that somebody is talking about this because it's not something that is taken really seriously, and it's not just about India. It's anywhere. So, uh, so, so I agree with with a lot of what Shivangi said, but one thing I think that is really important is that the she mentioned a power difference and the power dynamics, and the important thing without which there really can't be violence against women is the belief that as a man I am entitled to something from women, and that happens, and that happens with rape, it happens with sexual assault, um, it but it also happens with everyday catcalling, like how do you think you have a right to walk freely in public spaces, and what do I gain out of it? And the other thing, and that is more common, I think, but the other issue, and you see that more the with the worse, the more extreme forms of violence is psychopathy, where men will often try, and they are unable to feel any kind of empathy women in their circle and can't, and which basically means that they can't imagine what it's like and for instance, the with the Nirbhaya rapes, the s- the psych the psychologist or the psychiatrist, I can't remember who it was. I think it was both, who did a report on Ram Singh, who was one of the rapists, said that he was definitely a psychopath. But I think they probably all were, given the kind of violence that was inflicted on her. I think they all were. So it's an inability to feel that the women around you and the ones you see are that they are entitled to live in peace, and the feeling that you are entitled to do whatever. And this tends to happen more when when there are defined, I wouldn't just say defined gender roles, but extremely defined gender roles, like the belief that a woman should not be out of the house at all, or that I mean, here I'm not talking about a defined gender role, like saying a woman is a mother. I'm not talking about things like what is a woman. I'm talking about things like what, like Shivangi said, what should a good woman do or not do. So that's what I'm talking about here, and that feeds into the dynamic, because men think then that being a man means that you need to have power and control over women, and the in countries where the dynamic is different, there tends to be less of this kind of violence. And I know that somebody might bring up Sweden here, but I'm not going to talk about that, because there's another reason for that. They count sexual violence in quite a different way in Sweden. Like, often, if a woman goes on a DTC bus in Delhi, there actually isn't a single time that I've gone on public transport in North India, and sometimes in Calcutta, and not been groped. But have I ever complained to the police? No, I haven't, because we always just took that as the price you pay for leaving your home and going out. But in many countries, it would be counted as a sexual assault, and I never realized it was that until quite recently. So, talking about the effects it has, uh, talking about the first one, is that I find that a lot of women, um, even those who don't identify it as a primary reason for coming to see a psychiatrist in the first place, have a degree of post-traumatic stress disorder from this. That that often they are very wary. Often they're anxious. Often when they hear news of sexual assaults, they have flashbacks about it and get upset about it. And it's really incredibly common. It's not like only a few women have it. It's I would think it's probably a majority of women who have some symptoms of it, even if they don't meet all the criteria. And uh, and there are other issues, of course. Like, I recently learned, and that through study, that a lot of women uh, who have faced domestic violence have cognitive issues, because they've been beaten and shaken around the head. They have brain issues, and that shows up in imaging, things like MRI and things like that. will sometimes see these tiny bleeds that show up, and and so it actually affects them in every way that you can think of. And and then I want to step back and ask, how much harder is it for women to live their everyday lives? Like, life is hard enough as it is for everyone, and if to that you add a degree of PTSD and constant fear and the helplessness that you know that nothing will ever be done, um, it's it all amounts to a negative experience of life in general, and that's thought to be one of the reasons why women have higher rates of depression overall, and they also have higher rates of attempting suicide, but because they're less likely to try something that will make a mess or leave an or leave a messy corpse, they're less likely to succeed. But this is actually taking lives. Um, and one of the things is that there was an article some time ago that married women young women, and especially young married women in India, have a higher rate of suicide than most other countries, and it asked why, and it didn't really answer, but I think as Indians, it's something for us to think about. Um, the fact that being a young woman has a relative, it gives you a relative degree of immunity. Uh, I'm talking about, say, above the age of 25 to about the age of 65, and it gives you some immunity in many countries, but it doesn't in India. And the question is really, why is that? And that's something to think about for all of us. I'd like to hand it back to you at this point.
All right. So now, okay, Joga, I'll come to you now. So when we were chatting offline, so I was talking to you, and you were telling me about what experiences, or I don't know, what horror an average woman has to go through just through the daily experience of maybe traveling or dealing with things like just going down the elevator or stuff like that. So now I'll hand it over to you, and maybe you can share your thoughts on this process.
Hi, Kushal, and hi, ladies, and everybody else listening in. So, yeah, honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed, Kushal. Firstly, thank you for doing this. And the reason I'm overwhelmed is because I heard the two ladies before me, and, gathering all my thoughts and sort of focusing it on all the experiences I've had personally and probably collectively in this group, what we go through in daily lives, right from being a girl, growing up, right from growing up. It kind of overwhelmed me thinking, oh my God. So, yeah, give me a minute. I want to first start with, and I'm going to read it verbatim. This is a tweet that was a response to a very normal, kind of query that I had put out, because I was also with all the discussion that we were having around this particular topic, I did ask it on my TL that I feel that, I mean, I see a lot of men hating on women, because I feel that's where this whole, need to sort of this whole sexual abuse or this abuse of power comes from. So this is one of the responses, and I think it very well defines, a big point of why do they do it. So it says men can take away everything from women if they want, every so-called right that women have, that too overnight, just like Taliban did and in Afghanistan. So you women should be grateful to us for giving you rights, which we can take back overnight. This was the tweet by some, unknown anon account. But the clarity of thought, honestly, I think this is where it stems from mostly, the power and the need to constantly, sort of display that power for themselves, as well as in that whole, the pack that they want to be part of, they want to lead. So it's all about power. And obviously there are some, as Nayanika and Shivangi, they mentioned, there are some psychos obviously, but mostly it's men who, when men are younger and they do it on the streets, and then suddenly they grow up and they get into those, well settled lives, they'll marry, they'll go ahead, have children, have daughters and all that, but they probably also have done it at one point of time. So it's like a power equation. So now when you asked me about my personal experiences, I'll only talk about my personal experiences, but obviously I have friends, I have family who are women, and on it, I have never met anybody in my life who's a woman and who has not been a victim of any kind of sexual violence, be it eve teasing, catcalling, molestation, inappropriate touching, forcing themselves, men forcing themselves, coercion, like that power thing in workplace or in institutions, which we become part of, Kushal. There are those fancy clubs, this, that, that we become part of, and it's there everywhere. I don't know any woman who has ever come up to me who has said, we have never been part of this group who like you who have experienced this. Not one single woman. So I'm still waiting for somebody to come up to me and say that we have never experienced catcalling or eve teasing. And I have experienced sexual violence as a child, and a number of times. And it's hard because coming out with it, only a few friends or some people might know about it, but I want to talk about it because a lot of women I know have this experience who don't want to talk about it because of there is a factor of shame, and also the fact, honestly, because you know what, it'll hurt our parents and our guardians who were supposed to protect us, and they tried but they could not, because you know what, parents can't be there with you 100% of the time. They can't be there always. My parents were working. They were trying to give us a good life. And it's not like they were keeping us in the dark, telling us everything is good, hunky-dory. But, there are those instances. I was molested by the landlord's son who was much older to us. We used to call him Bhaiya. And they were like his younger siblings and all that we used to play with. And the fact is that when it happened with me, I did not understand what was happening. I retraced my steps when I was older and I could understand it. And there was this sense of anger and frustration because I could not help it. At that point of time, I was a child. But I started understanding it because I remember once we were on a family trip. We were in Kolkata. We were taking a public bus. And my parents, I was sitting with my mom and my dad was standing in front of us. And there was this guy who was sitting next to my mom. And I think he was trying to first touch her inappropriately. And then he tried it with me. And I could feel his hands. And my dad saw it, my mom saw it, and they just swooped in. Obviously, they didn't create a ruckus, but they just sort of, they got up and they just surrounded me. That kind of a thing. And that's the first time I kind of experienced okay, this is not right. There's something going on here. And, okay, maybe it's a generational thing. They did not come back and sat me down and told me about it, but I saw that protection. And I have seen my dad and my mom doing it. When I, obviously, growing up, I started going out. I had to be independent. My parents were working. Both my, elder brother and I were in school, college, and we had to do things on our own. So my mom like, mothers are like that, a little more practical. Being a woman, experienced it more than probably the fathers. She would always tell me, you know what, be careful, don't confront, just put take yourself out of the situation. Very, very sane advice. At that point of time, I thought that she was asking me to be weak, but later on I realized that she was actually being practical, because I can't fight every man, right? I can't fight every boy. I'm not physically capable of that. But thankfully my dad also taught me, like, he balanced it out, and I'm so ever grateful for him and my parents, how they did it, that he said, no, go punch him first, beat him, and I'll take care of the rest, you don't worry. So I kind of balanced it out, because honestly, when I grew up, I could take care of myself a little bit. I did start confronting. I remember slapping a guy on the railway station, like a full packed railway station, and this guy comes and he has the audacity to come and grope me, with my parents, with my family walking in front and all. And I just turned around and slapped him hard in his face. And it was just out of, I didn't think about it. My dad was right behind me, and he saw me, and he came running, and he obviously grabbed the guy. He gave him 2 more slaps, then the cops came and all that. And then I've been doing all that. I've carried pins and compasses, traveling back from late studies, college, late labs, because being the only woman in the auto, men would just would take that as a easy prey. So then I realized, what, I can't all the time start keep pushing myself in the corner. So I started giving it back as well. But obviously, as mom taught, I kind of had that in my mind as well. I knew that I could not fight every guy. There was one time that, you won't believe it, it was my own society, it was my own colony, and I was just coming back from the shops, and there were a bunch of guys. I had not seen them. They were probably from the nearby village or something, and they saw me, and for some reason they just chased me, because they did not realize I live there. I know the roads. And it was shocking, because you know what, I obviously ran like hell. I came up to my house, I shouted at the guards, they chased them away. But I just could not for 2 days think beyond the fact that, what if they had caught me, Kushal? And that is the dread that we constantly live with. I started riding. I mean, obviously, as I said, because I had to be independent earlier. So I was given a 2-wheeler. I had to go to my college on that, my school on that. And then that starts. I mean, a girl riding a 2-wheeler on her own, or even a cycle for that matter, or even on foot. That's like you're giving out an invitation to men on the road. It seems that, hey, I'm out there. That means, it's like, to use the very crappy example, I'm the lollipop without the wrapper. Please come and tease me. So I'm using this very crappy example, because that's how they actually see it. Oh, a single girl on foot, on a cycle, you won't believe it, how many accidents I've had on my 2-wheeler, not because I was riding badly, but because men were chasing me on motorcycles. They were chasing me down, and I had to, like, literally, I was on a much smaller bike. I mean, my bike would not go beyond 60-70 kilometers per hour. So that was a kind of crazy I have dealt with as well. And there was one instance which I have actually written in one of the articles I had written long back. And it is still there with me somewhere. That is one instance which I have not been able to sort of recover from. There was this guy who was on a bike. He comes very close and starts riding next to me. I could not outrun him. I slow down, thinking that, he's on a bike. Maybe he will, get bored and leave me alone. He just comes very close. He just, puts his hand out. He grabs my breast. He squeezes it, and he just rides away, Kushal. I could not catch him. I was so helpless. I was so angry. Basically, I sped my bike. I could not catch him. That is one instance I've not been able to overcome because I'm angry that I was not on something faster. I was not on something bigger. So that is something which stayed with me, and it still hurts, pinches me somewhere. Obviously, after that, start working, living in a different country even, and all. I've learned to deal with it. I think both Nayanika and Shivangi has mentioned like how this is the price we pay for being independent, having a life of our own, and we try to ignore a lot of it, forget a lot of it. Now I try to look out for other women, other young women, when I see them in public places. I try to do that. The other day, I was actually doing it at a nightclub. I was with my husband, and he was actually sort of finding it a little amusing because I kind of stopped, like, drinking. I stopped dancing. I was like not eating, and I was not having my own fun because I was so focused on this one girl who I saw was kind of a little high, like, she was drunk, and I was so scared for her because it all was rushing back, all those things, what can happen, oh my god. So these things we live with every day, and it's difficult. How do you share it? My parents never tried to sort of hold me back because of these things. All they wanted was for me to stay safe. But I know so many women who would not share such, such instances, such things with their parents or with their family, because then the automatic answer would be, okay, you stay back at home, you don't need to go out. I mean, that's the solution. So yeah, I think let's hear from some other women, and I can always come back. Thank you.
All right, Pramita, I'll like to come to you now. So one place that maybe I did want to talk about was workplace, and when I say workplace, I mean career building. When it comes to women building their careers, आई डोंट नो, मुझे बोलने को भी बहुत शर्म आ रही है ये, मतलब every time you see a particular woman building a career for herself, कोई ना कोई आके, somebody or the other is going to come there and pass some comment as if they're like, okay, I'm not going to swear because आज मैं गाली नहीं दूंगा. Somebody is like a mind reader, and they have gone into that person's head and they have literally analyzed what that person's life is. And they have decided there is no other way that that particular woman could rise up. And believe me, I have met politicians who have faced this. I have met women in corporate world who have faced this. So could you maybe talk about that, Pramita?
Yeah, hi Kushal. Hello everyone. I mean, it is in a way it was therapeutic as well as traumatic to hear experiences of others, especially what all the women have faced. And I agree. I mean, I have not met a single woman who has not faced any sort of unwanted sexual advances ever. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, even our previous generations have also faced the same in home or outside. um Obviously I am no exception. I have faced several cases of unwanted sexual advances over the years in public spaces, in public transport, in metro, in a very safe and crowded place like Marine Drive. I have five eve teasing cases which I have registered across in Kolkata as well as in Mumbai. Um, a huge thanks to our judiciary for never taking them up, which is, I guess, one reason why women never bother to report cases, is because they know that it is pointless, even though the police helps. And in my case, the police have always helped. Um, but the judiciary it really needs to step up and ensure that all of these cases get a fast track hearing. Um, Currently, though, the case that I wanted to speak about and what I had spoken to Kushal as well as Smitadi also is not just an unwanted sexual advance which I faced from someone in the same industry. I'm an ex-journalist, but also the kind of rejection about the incident that I faced from the so-called flag bearer of the Me Too movement. I'm not sure if Kushal would want me to name names. However, I'm sure we all know who that would be. Especially all of us who are active on Twitter know who acts as a flag bearer of Me Too movement in India. Um, so the case that happened to me was traumatic at multiple levels because no, he was not a colleague. I have been a journalist for 12 plus years, and I have always been fortunate in the fact that in whichever offices I have worked in, I have not really faced any sexual predator. So, but he was from the same industry. He was also a journalist, and why the reason it is more traumatic is because I have known that person as a family friend's son since I was 4 or 5. So we connect at a personal level as well, like at a family level as well. Like our families know each other for years. They keep coming and going to each other's family functions, family pujas, and all of that. The person in question was somebody I called Mama, for instance. So I was obviously, I mean, growing up, we had a lot of family interaction. However, I was not in touch with this person for the longest time, and then we reconnected when I moved to Delhi, and I was working in Delhi. And so there was a time in 2012 when I wanted to leave Delhi and I wanted to go back in Calcutta and work there and stay with my family. And I was I was looking for a job in Calcutta because the paper I worked for at that time was Delhi based and did not have a Calcutta edition. So there was no obviously chance to take a transfer for that matter. So I was obviously, I mean, whoever I knew in the media industry, I asked for help, and there was this person who was a political editor at one of the national newspapers. And so yeah, so this is the same person that I'm talking about. And I asked him, if he could help me land a job, or introduce me to the editor of this of the Calcutta edition of this newspaper where he was working. And I was absolutely appalled when he was like, I will make sure you get a job if only, in return of a certain sexual favor. I was, I remember, I was in the courtyard of the office where I was working when this conversation happened on phone, and I came up, I hung up the phone on him, and I came up absolutely shattered. I'm not somebody who's easily shattered or anything. So my boss at that point of time, he was very, very shocked. He was like, what happened to you? And I told him, and he was very supportive. I mean, he was the first person of support, first person I met and first person of support. So yeah, so this is when the incident happened. Years later, when the Me Too movement came up, and when I texted the so-called flag bearer of the Me Too movement about this, the trauma level simply went up because she said, what you said cannot be true because this person is my friend. Bam, right there. So yeah, I mean, if you claim to lift up other women, if you claim to be the crusader of this so-called Me Too movement, which is considered to be a safe space for women to come out and speak about their experience which they have faced. um, and then if you are behaving like this, it's a complete betrayal of that movement in the first place. So yeah, I mean, either do that movement with complete honesty, do not defend people, even if that person is your friend or father, or don't do this movement at all. That's my only 2 cents about it.
I'm really sorry you had to go through this, but Shiprita, you also wanted to build on the workplace harassment bit. So yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So my first experience with the workplace part was when I had just started working. Now, obviously, Pramita has actually faced it externally. I'm an engineer by profession, and I was posted inside a plant, which is a factory plant where there were no other girl in engineering level. So I was someone who had no one to actually, express this feeling. And I had one person who was senior to me in the organization, or rather in my plant, not exactly my boss, but he was senior to me. He worked in the same unit earlier, and he actually came up to me. I was very young then, 22 or 23 years of age, and back then you were all alone in the entire plant. So when you don't get some time, you start doing anything. You have some extra time that you just get into it. This literally happened to me when I started. There was some, there was some apparatus, extra apparatus, which was thrown away, and I just, collected it to do some kind of a time pass, and I started making a tar out of it. Nothing specific. I don't know from where he saw it. And by the way, that guy was at least 60 years of age, not a young person. He just came to me and he said, uh, he said, "What are you exactly making? ये तो कुछ और ही लग रहा है." Literally, the word was this. For a moment, I was so much taken into aback. And then he actually showed me another apparatus in which there was something, we used to pour in something, and then the actual thing used to come up. That is how we used to do that experiment. He showed me, ये देख के समझ में नहीं आया मैं क्या कह रहा हूँ. And that is one line. That's long back. This person was supposedly a very decent and a very nice person, and he literally came to me and said this something which was not at all. I don't know how we should do it. He explained, this was something which was so traumatic to me. And literally there was no one who could have actually believed that this has happened to me, because the person was always considered a very nice and a helpful person. So, and again, there were other people who would just say that, "Yeah, nahi, nahi, he is a very old person, you should not get into that." This is one thing which was so traumatic for me, and it took me a lot of time to actually cope with that kind of a feeling. When you start the working and you're still actually at the age of a 22, 23, you're still in your post teen. You don't even understand the things, and at that point of time people actually come up, start making it. It's not just the Me Too movement which has affected in the media or in the big corporate offices, small time offices. And then there are people who will just start making you feel guilty, or rather start making you feel the person responsible for being attacked. This is and that especially happened in the tier 2, tier 3 cities in back in mid 2000s. This is one thing I wanted to say. And sorry, I just got a bit emotional. And the other thing is, what I have a feeling is, not sure how much others will agree to it, that somehow or the others, the people at that point of time, at least up till the 2000s, they had a backing of some of the Bollywood movies which actually showcased the people who made such casual sexual remarks onto the girls as heroes. And we also they also sometimes, probably some of the religious texts and everything, all those mismatched, or all those matched, they actually prepared it, and it was somehow expected that up till a certain level the girl should not feel bad at all. That is something you have to face it. In fact, you will feel, I don't know if any one of you are from the tier 2, tier 3 cities like me. There it was stated that if you are out for working, itna to accept karna hi padega. He did not touch you, he did not do anything to you, so don't worry. At least if till the time you're not being physically touched, there is nothing, and you have to face it. This was my experience about it. just wanted to say that.
All right, now Shivangi, I'll come back to you. Now let's go to part two. Let's break the reasons down, and you've heard everyone now. Now
Yeah.
again, let's go back to the theoretical perspectives, because even my mind is not working now.
Yeah. First of all, I'm really sorry for everyone who's gone through this experience. But I want to also get the feminist perspective on this, which, when we have consciousness raising and historically it's happened, it's actually about when you share these very difficult experiences that make you anxious and make your body go through this form of trauma. uh, we actually realize that when all women, and I say all women and not most women, when we're making the statement that all women have gone through some form of harassment, not dependent on their age, whatever society they're coming from, class they're coming from, caste they're coming from, we are all being put through this experience. And this is a rape culture, and this makes us realize that there is an acceptance of violence in the community and by the society, right? So, because of that acceptance, we are often told, okay, let it go, because there is also a hierarchy of your sexual harassment and a hierarchy of your violence that you're facing. Oh, but he did not touch you. Oh, but it only happened once. And what is actually happening by the end of it is there is a culture of silence that we are facing at every stage of life. As a child, from our parents, it hurts to critically look at our parents, but they're also part of that patriarchal society, right? It culture of silence that is coming forward to in institutions like family or religion or society, any space that is telling you as a woman you have to tolerate this abuse. So when you're actually telling other women that covertly or overtly that you have to tolerate this abuse, what you're actually saying is that we are accepting that there is a violent socialization of boys. We're accepting toxic masculinity. We're accepting this rape culture. We're actually accepting that you will be fine. Don't say anything to men because, quote unquote, boys will be boys. Now, this has to go then to the space of why is there a normalization of violence and why are men being this way? Men of every age, men in every space, these experiences that they have shared here, we are assuming will sensitize the audience, will sensitize the men. But the problem is very deeper. It is cathartic for us as women to go through these experiences and say, yes, I also faced it. But if you look back, what is happening when the boy is growing up? So I'm going to go through that quickly to understand where this is going from. So you have, and I say there is a violent socialization of boys. So when you're growing up, there's a normalization of violence. You're saying boys will be boys, and in the modern society, you're saying what makes a real man, right? Who? How are you a good man? What is real masculinity? So you have traditional and very stereotypical norms of masculinity and roles. So you have expectations that boys must be active, aggressive, dominant, and they should be real men and they should be adhering to traditional male gender roles. What happens is, for example, the very famous Andrew Tate, and I want to take his name here, he will tell, oh, behave like a man, do this to the woman. You're accepting that this is how aggressively you should go about it, that you should show the women their place. And there is an inherent biological understanding of it कि women belong in a certain space. So what you're saying is when you exercise your mobility in any other space, I will harass you and I will violate you to the point and make you obedient and make you the good woman. Now, the good woman definition will change across religion, but it will remain the same. You are a good woman who follows the rules and the molds of what society has told you. You move ahead. Your parents want you to safely and they want to protect you under patriarchy and say, one day I will get my girl married to a good man, right? I will protect her, sorry to say, but virginity, right? It is all about the honor. It is all about the fact, how do we protect the woman? So, and coming back to the space that I am not making a bad woman out of my daughter. I am not making something has happened to you. They don't want your body to be violated, because if you bring back to your body it is then not in the definition of purity and pollution pure anymore. Therefore, there is a strong culture of silence. Acha, tumhare sath child sexual abuse hua, I am sorry, but we will not take a stand. For example, or like it happens at your workplace. Oh, but he's a friend, right? So you are trying to, there's a strong impunity because women in itself are also taking part in this rape culture, in the misogyny, in the patriarchy, because they are negotiating patriarchy, and they are, by being close to dominant men, gaining power out of the situation, right? If I go, for example, if someone's complained against their boss and the other person's like, oh no, he's a friend of mine, you are trying to have a false sense of loyalty to what is wrong and what is against women and against everything that is morally correct, morally, where you're trying to have a gender equal space. So when you look at violence and how it is done and how men and boys are violently socialized into believing that this is what makes you a right man, so you have to keep the woman, you have to keep your sister in check, you have to harass. Okay, it's okay to harass, holi hai, bura mat mano, I will harass you. So what, she's sensitive, she's someone who has a subjective reality of things. You will have other men supporting that because men are supporting men, but women aren't supporting women. Why? Because of course they are also learning that why should I adhere to being loyal to other women, because women do not largely have power in any space, right? If I support someone as a friend or someone in any space, the woman who has gone through any form of harassment, I am not getting anything out of it. So this is the game of power, this is the game of unequal gender world. This is a game of where men are in a modern society being told, you be aggressive, it's okay for you to do this. It is the idea and impunity that this is okay to do this. You can loiter, you can hang in groups, you can sexually harass. This is what makes you a man. Now going ahead into what can be done about it, and also one more thing just to add, everyone shared their different experiences, but there will be people who will be like, oh but itna bura to nahi hua tumhare sath, right? Oh but he just touched your ass, he just pressed your chest, oh he could have raped you. So everyone's living in that fear of violence. Oh thank god, at least that didn't happen to us. Imagine where women are taking literal pins and compasses with themselves because they fear their life, because men out there just believe they can harass. Why? Because they feel nothing. Nobody will do anything against them. That is where it's come down to. I do not fear anything. I am above the law. I am above the law of the land. I am above women. मेरे घर वाले मुझे कुछ नहीं बोलेंगे. I will slut shame the woman. I will do whatever I want. Police will start slut shame. Court will slut shame. She will be alone because she does not have support. Now, coming back to what can women do, I strongly believe, and I bring in my work experience here. When I was in Tata Institute, there's the special cell that is social workers that are placed in police system for domestic violence cases and other sexual harassment cases. The whole idea of that program was that you are placing social worker in the police system and getting that power of the police so that the man understands that there is someone who can bring you back to your place, that women can be protected, not from a patriarchal space, but actually protected, and the responsibility of the state. So, what is the responsibility of the state and the government here, where some women are wanting to enter the labor force, women are wanting to go work, women are working hard in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, but you have an acceptance of this violence in the country, and that is being accepted and not even regulated, it is being celebrated from your religion, from your family, from your caste. So like the previous podcast that Kushal we did about caste masculinity, oh तुम तो इसी caste के हो, हम लोग तो ऐसे ही होते हैं, हम तो ऐसे ही करते हैं. Now coming back to what should women do, I strongly suggest the onus, I request women, if someone harasses you, which is not sexual harassment in the public space, we can't have evidence of, in a formal space, in a workspace, in your any space, create evidence, take your screenshots, have correct documentation, and be confident. And I say this on this podcast, find feminist spaces that will support you, that will take you to justice. Do you want me to share more about how to approach police or what kind of services are there?
Ha. Bol,
Okay.
please, please.
Okay. So there are a lot of, I think at first, if we go step by step in terms of intervention, it is about reporting, right? The first step is reporting. The first step is, do I want to report? I am coming from anxiety of what will happen if I report. Important part is, it is a sad society here, it is a violent space, but we have to report, we have to come out in your own spaces so that we can tell and explain that this is wrong. So when you can report under the Vishakha guidelines in the the for sexual harassment, you have stalking cases 354, you have many sections that were given by Justice Verma, in that you have a lot of them where you can file for stalking, for immodesty. You go and you demand justice from the police. It is the responsibility of the state and the police to provide that protection to you. Nobody can harass you like that. You create that form of evidence, you take screenshots, you have witnesses. Do not inform people just by call, inform them on messages, so you have proof to say this harassment has happened to me, and we will fight it together. But you have social workers that are placed in police system. You have uh, I will create a list and I'll send it to Kushal, who can share it then on Twitter. There are a lot of what do you say, spaces, there are NGO spaces that work with violence. You have police, there have social workers that are there that can help you, support you. You obviously, for the individual, you have a lot of therapists who work with trauma and then can support you throughout. But just to say, it also becomes very easy to make it clinical, because then what happens is you're putting the onus on the man and saying, man is psycho, उसने कुछ गलत किया. But what you're actively trying to do is removing your own accountability from that situation and saying, oh, as a society, we are not wrong. There is something problem with the individual. A particular man is wrong. No, all of you are wrong. All of you have been there where you've not supported someone. You only supported because you मेरी बहन है, मेरी माँ है, or in that very patriarchal sense of thing, I will protect that I own, in terms of a wife or in terms of who I am related to, but not the other, not the quote unquote bad woman. Now, bad woman's definition, just I'll end this and then we can take it forward, is anyone who is not following what you think is right. Oh, why is she wearing that? Why is she drinking like that? Why is she standing so close? Why is she talking so loudly? Why is she eating this? Anything and everything that they believe is wrong. So, yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So now I want to focus on something which is it is like a necessary evil, because I mean, at the end of the day, even this discussion is happening on a social media platform. Um, so जोगा, तुम वर्ल्ड फेमस हो सोशल मीडिया पे सबसे झगड़ा तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है सोशल मीडिया पे?
Yeah, मैं world famous हूँ social media पे, and you know I'm actually one of the top contenders of the most hated women on social media, on Twitter. And so basically, I think Shiprita mentioned about Bollywood, right? So she said that Bollywood obviously had this set, you know, formula. लड़की को छेड़ना इज पार्ट ऑफ द हीरोज क्या रे, वो पहले हाफ में छेड़ेगा उसको, गाने गाएगा, उसको पटाएगा उस तरह से, लाइक यू नो वी रिमेंबर ऑल द वर्ल्ड फेमस मूवीज दैट वी यूज्ड टू वी हैव वॉच्ड अप ग्रोइंग, लाइक दिल एंड you know Khiladi and all that, and we all have enjoyed it with mindlessly. But growing up we have realized, yes, they have sort of created a culture of how society or how young men growing up also see women, and how they think that this is how you're supposed to behave to get women or to attract their attention. So here on the point of social media, I would like to say that honestly, I feel social media has replaced Bollywood when it comes to carrying forward that same mindset. So we have people like, you know, Andrew Tate and our world famous Hindu sir. I mean, you know, he's the Andrew Tate of our trad community. बहुत ही बढ़िया अमेजिंग थ्रेड्स लिखते हैं, कभी पढ़ना कुशल, ऐसे मुंह मत बनाओ, कभी पढ़ो, बहुत एनलाइटमेंट आएगी लाइफ में. So, but the fact is that yes, Bollywood obviously does not do all those things anymore, but social media does. There are men out there and catfish and some women who are carrying that entire mindset forward by telling people that you are supposed to harass women, you're supposed to keep them under your thumbs, and how to do it, how you're supposed to oppose the whole empowerment of women. So the very easiest path to keeping women obedient, keeping controlling women, that power comes from this sexual harassment, and any kind of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is verbal also, right? Written is sexual harassment as well. People get sexually harassed, like, they're threatened, they are abused, they are trolled on social media, and that all that has psychological effects. And you have experts on the panel to talk about it, but we all know it affects women. And I know women, honestly, on my TL, who have been abused, and it gets to them so much that they have to deactivate from time to time. Like, everybody is not sort of rhino skinned like me, कि भैया तुमने गाली दी, मैंने तुमको गाली दी, हो गया. That's fine. But a lot of women, they have to disconnect, they have to leave the space. So this is again a form of continued. So here men are still learning how to continue with the old age format. And I feel that we need more people, sort of, I mean, what, 2023 are they, we need more men to sort of come up and help us out, in the sense, kaun baat karega with these men? Who will talk about all these people who are doing making these threads, making these videos, putting them on social media? Because see, for the group of women like us who do it, we absolutely get labeled instantly, and army of trolls are sent behind us. There's these funny terms they use for us, those weird spellings, vehemence, evil vehemence, feminists, and stuff like that. They call us shaktis, distorting the those terms and all. Basically, it's all form of abuse. We take it day in and day out. uh, because honestly, for me, I feel that, why should I let my space go? But not every woman would think like that. Yeah, I mean, it is a form of a mental harassment. And honestly, what I feel is, and this is where I was connecting with to Bollywood, because a lot of my good friends tell me, and I used to believe it myself, that social media is not real. So people who behave irrationally here, or like this badly here, may not be doing it in real lives. I'm sorry to say, I don't believe that anymore. I feel that these men who are behaving absolutely obnoxiously on social media under the cover of anonymity are exactly like how they are. They would be out there harassing, trying to figure out ways of oppressing women in different ways. And we need to talk about how to curb all this. So yeah, if you want to bring in somebody like probably Nainika or somebody.
Yeah, actually, I did have a question. Nainika, how does one counsel such young men? Just say, so one of the struggles, I'll share my own struggle, Nainika, with you. I've told this to you so many times in our private conversations also. Like, if I meet young men, so I'll give you a demographic, okay? Um, YouTube, I don't know how to say, is overwhelmingly the dominated by male listeners. It's one of the biggest reasons I am doing this is I want all these young men to maybe listen and realize, like, how Nayanika, how does a person like me, because naturally मुझसे ज्यादा लड़के बात करेंगे for statistical reasons. I'm not saying it for any other reason, just purely statistical reasons. So how do, if I was to come to you, Nainika, how do I counsel them? Like, how do I tell them कि यार बेटा ऐसी हरकतें नहीं करते, and these are the reasons in simplified language? Nainika, if you could maybe explain that.
So I think the simplest way is probably how you would tell a child not to do something, which is to say, how would you feel if somebody did that to you? And this actually does apply to sexual harassment as well, because I see quite often men saying about gay men, I'm scared of them. I don't know what they'll do to me. They groped me, and I believe a lot of that. Um, and I'm not saying by any means that all gay men are going around groping straight men, but I do believe that the ones who have said that have had these experiences. So I think, and so I think, it's quite true to say that men do understand what consent is, because they completely understand when it's a gay men when it's gay men groping them. They completely say, oh, I never agreed to that. I never showed any interest in him. Why is he doing this? So the easiest way, the simplest way, I wouldn't say the easiest way, but the simplest way with a child is when you say, um, how would you feel if this happened to you? And to say, how would you feel if if you were in a bus and an older man grabbed your crotch? How would that make you feel? Or and there are similar examples, say around that. So, or the other thing which I don't encourage, but I've seen people do it because it appeals to patriarchy, unfortunately, is how would you feel if it was your sister or your wife or something? And in my opinion, that doesn't work, because men always tend to say, if it was my sister, she wouldn't be out at night at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And if it was my wife, she would be at home cooking, so it wouldn't apply to her. I really think that it's very hard to educate individual men, except by trying to instill some kind of empathy in them. And I think, like somebody had mentioned the engineering space, and I think especially with young people who've done competitive exams, engineering or medicine, they've been, or the IS exams, whether they get it or not, they're out of normal society for so long that they no longer realize how normal people act and behave. And so they often uh, they they often do things that, um, if they had exposure to women and they knew that some that things upset women as well, it might not happen. Now, there are some people who are actually empowered by the fact that it upsets women and that encourages them more. But but there is a section of people who just don't see, of men who just, and some women who just don't see women as equal and complete human beings who have feelings, and people who will be upset. So so I think that's important. The other thing I'd say is that until you look at society at large, it's very hard to look at individual men, and that's why often when we talk about rape culture, people are angry because they say Indian culture is great culture and it's not rape culture and things like that. And I think that's a lack of understanding what the word rape culture actually means. It actually means a society or a culture which does nothing to put off rape. Like, most rapes aren't reported, and if something happens, it's only ever the woman who suffers for it and is blamed for it in public. So I would say absolutely there is a rape culture. So I think it's really important that men who sexually harass women are made to feel that that behavior is inappropriate. But it also means that you start educating boys at a young age before they start doing any of this, and that might mean that you tell 7 and 8-year-old boys, or even younger, that they can't do this. And I can foresee problems with that, because some people would probably say you're taking away their innocence and things like that. But I would point out that uh, the first time I was groped, I think, was probably about I hadn't been in India long, and I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. So when young girls aren't able to protect their innocence, why is it not okay to try and teach young boys about what is appropriate behavior? The and the other thing I think is that even now I don't think there's anything in schools to teach young boys about what they can and can't do. Um, Sex education should include some education about relationships, and it should include some education that if you're interested in a woman, it's one thing to ask her out, but it's not appropriate to go up and grope her. But I think even now in most schools, I don't think this is happening. I'm not talking about the posh international IB schools here. I don't think it's happening in your average school. Um, and I think that is really important. The other issue, and I think again at a systems level that we need to address. There was a woman on Twitter whom I won't name because she's no longer there, but some of the others here, and I don't know if you remember, but at a Mumbai railway station, she was groped, and she tried to make a police case about that, and the police actually said to her, "Why are you spoiling these boys' lives?" And people on Twitter were demanding evidence, like, why didn't you take a video of these men groping you? And eventually she left, and I think that has affected her quite badly. I'm not in touch with her, but she was affected by it. And I think it's important for the police and the court system to realize that that if you don't act on it, it's not neutral. It's uh, that people tend to think, oh, we didn't listen to her, and so we didn't do anything, so it's neutral. But it's not. You've taken the boys' side, the men's side, by not making a complaint about it. And what he's learned is that he can keep doing this. And to think of the audacity to do such a thing in a busy railway station at 8 o'clock in the morning in Mumbai, and still be able to get away with it, is I mean, it shows that it wasn't their first time, and it wouldn't be their last. And that applies to most sexual predators, actually, that they're very rarely one-off offenders. It's and this idea that some man is so struck by what you're wearing, or your great beauty, or whatever, it's a ridiculous thing to think. So I think we do have to look at the individual, but as long as society keeps encouraging violence against women, and I think it does, what we do can only be quite limited. But I do think that if more men knew uh, what an effect it has on women around them, most women don't just go home. And even if we don't think about it, things like this happening every day, it builds up and it has an effect on us. And although I've heard so much, I've I've just heard so much that in my practicing life and otherwise, that I didn't think that anything could shock or surprise me, but I'm still moved by what I've heard here today. Thanks.
All right. So, Pramita, you wanted to make a point on the police and the judiciary. So, please come in.
Yeah, so I wanted to speak about a recent incident which I have not personally faced, but it happened with my flatmate a few months back, and I remember tweeting about it as well. And also very surprisingly, this happened in Mumbai. I mean, we all go out in Mumbai at all hours of the day and night, right? And I actually, even if I'm taking a rickshaw at 3 a.m., I always go to sleep in the rickshaw, and thankfully nothing untoward has happened to me. But this is something that my flatmate faced in Warsaw, where she had boarded a rickshaw to come home, and the rickshaw took her in the opposite direction. And when she asked the rickshaw to stop, the rickshaw guy didn't, and he just kept on going. And she was contemplating jumping off when thankfully there was a police patrol car and the rickshaw stopped. So I remember when she came back home, she was like completely shaken and all. And well, I have this habit of, something like this happens to me, the first thing I will do is I will go to the cops. But not all women will do that. However, her mom pushed her to go to the cops, and I remember taking her to the Nagar police station that very same day. And we spent about an hour and a half trying to convince the cops that this has actually happened. And while my flatmate gave like exact location, exact timing, everything which could be corroborated, the rickshaw number was also given, and the guy was traced and all. However, they simply refused to lodge an FIR, which is the first step to taking an action in cases like these. Uh, so, I mean, okay, this could be a one-off case because my experience with the police has always been good. Um, but this could be a one-off case. However, since I faced this personally, I was there in the police station. I tried to convince the officer in charge to take an FIR, but it did not happen. They refused to take the FIR. But if this, I mean, I'm not sure if this has become a regular practice in police stations, because if a crime is not reported, then you don't have to investigate it, right? So it's an easy way to show that the numbers against numbers of crime against women is low. So is the police trying to evade their responsibility? What is going on? Also, is this becoming a common thing in police stations in Mumbai? What happened? I mean, the a lot of it took a lot of tweets consistently, and then the Nagar police station sent an officer, a senior officer, at my building at 5 a.m. that day to take down a written complaint. We had spent 2 hours in the police station trying to get that done, and after a lot of tweets, and they finally sent a senior officer at 5 a.m., which I mean, even though they had like the entire a bunch of cops and a lady police, but 5 a.m. when I tried to spend when I spent 2 hours in the police station trying to register a complaint, it was insane in the first place. Another thing that I would really like to highlight here is the role of the judiciary. I mean, the police is a first, line of, you know, um, releasing your frustration, right? We often say that, we don't go to the police because the police doesn't do anything. But in a lot of cases, even when the police does become proactive and register a case and manage to investigate it. The judiciary just don't wake up. If a very very easy way to deal with crimes. I won't sorry, I won't call it a simple crime. It is a traumatic crime. But things like eve teasing, cat calling, molestation could be reduced considerably if there was fear of the law. But our judiciary, um, with its lack of any pace, has ensured that none of these people, and even though the laws are strong, they have ensured that none of these people have any fear of the law, because everybody knows that kya hoga, ye court to kabhi case ye uthayega nahi, we will get away with it. So this feeling of getting away with it also leads to you know a sense of misplaced courage in these men who think कि अरे क्या क्या होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा, एक तो लड़की कंप्लेन नहीं करेगी, लड़की कंप्लेन नहीं करेगी भी तो पुलिस एक्शन नहीं लेगी, पुलिस एक्शन लिया भी तो क्या होगा, जज तो कभी उठाएंगे भी नहीं. And I know this personally because I have never seen any of my 5 cases come up for a single hearing also in the lower courts. So I mean, if something like this, if crimes against women are taken so lightly by the judiciary, then how will crimes against women ever come down? If action is never taken, if the perpetrators are never punished, why will they be have any fear of the law? Why will they bother to even think what they're doing is wrong?
Got it. Yeah, it is a problem. Shiprita, you wanted to say something. You can come in.
Yes, Kushal. I actually wanted to say that, like hearing these traumatic experiences, has it something to do with the overall psyche that has been built up across generations, or you can say not generations, probably centuries or maybe millennia? If you see all the major cults or all the major religions, all the major stories that we come across, all have they have portrayed women as some kind of a property that you possess. Even if you see, the crime against women is not so much taken as a crime against that women, but against against the family to which that woman belongs into. We have stories where, or not just stories, we have rules that an abduction of an unmarried girl is not a crime if you actually end up marrying that woman. So this is something which has been so much into it, and as I read through it, even some of the people which from my childhood, and I didn't mean present day, the our epic heroes, our story heroes, our like national heroes, those people also sometimes come to me as, were they really as great as we think of them? So I think that this psyche has been built across generations for a time immemorable, you can say that. Just wanted to add this.
Yeah, on that, Shiprita, what you know, I don't know how many over here know about this, but like for the longest time, people have to realize, and I have to come in here because we don't have a female lawyer, unfortunately. So I'm just bringing this point. I don't know if Shivangi knows about this. Like English common law, Shivangi, uh, was
Yeah.
based in this entire concept of women are tilth. I don't know if you remember this. And unfortunately, if I have to explain to the people, women are tilth ka arth kya hota hai? Women are tilth means they are baby making factories. I did not make this up. Religions did. So if you want, you have a problem with that. People who are listening to this or watching this, भाई अपना गुस्सा जाके निकालो religions के ऊपर, मैंने नहीं किया था. It directly stems from this religious conception of what women are supposed to be, and English common law clearly had that women are tilth concept and a lot of things there. Now obviously the law slowly is getting over these what do I call them, Shivangi? Absurdities? What is the most correct word I can use over here? I don't know.
I
मेरी
think
अंग्रेजी इतनी अच्छी नहीं है.
I think when it comes to law and religion, it's all interrelated, right? Like it's stereotyping the notion of a good woman. By the end of the day, it's that, right? Women who procreate, therefore, like in the
And
yeah,
can I just say this on the record? All religions. मैं ये
exactly.
बोल रहा हूँ. all religions, before somebody gets triggered, सारे के सारे एक जैसे हैं.
Exactly.
आगे.
Yeah. So even for like the honorable court, or you have other institutions like religion, the judges, the police, your first point of contact, in the end, your lawyers, your male lawyers, your female lawyers, everyone is functioning under the same notion of what society decides as a good woman, what society decides as what is right and what is wrong. So in that patriarchal stereotype, to break it to the T, is that in your patriarchal social order, your good woman is obedient, virgin, submissive, makes children, aesthetically pleasing, and the bad woman is everything that is the other, which is that someone who's aggressive, hysterical, not obedient, rebellious, sexually active, exercises of physical mobility. Therefore, there's always that notion that if anything bad happens, that is sexual abuse, if that happens, it will only happen to bad women. If they're saying it or not saying it, they're believing that. The court is also believing that, with cases like where you had a huge judgment in Tarun Tejpal, which was talking about what is a perfect victim, or with Bishop Franco, which was talking about why did you only she said, oh, he raped me 13 times, and he's like, oh, but you did not repeat it again. If you go through that judgment, that's different. So eventually, even for the court and even for everything, that they're trying to define who deserves society's empathy, right? That is what it is. So a loose woman will be an extension of the bad woman, so therefore she will have untrustworthy character. Either she's having premarital sex, pre-marriage, outside her marriage, multiple partners, etc. Now, in terms of what happens in court, because I have done that work on like judgments, like I was telling you, is that they look at reliability, right? And they say that reliability is consistent across time. So you're saying items, which is internal consistency, or you're saying across researchers, and you're saying if something is reliable in terms of evidence, you can trust it, right? That's the inherent quality of evidence. So in direct or circumstantial evidence, what happens is with victim narrative, what the court tries to do, and even the police tries to do, and we as society try to do, is we are saying that the victim narrative is therefore not consistent across time and across items. So you are questioning the consistency on the ability of the victim or the survivor to recall. So you will ask many questions. Your information will be, have you shared this information with fellow witnesses? Then they'll be like, what if you share about act of any kind of harassment, rape, etc., are you timely, consistently creating and informing other witnesses? Are you having reliable information? And this very, what you say, positivist or scientific idea of inherent quality of evidence then gets informed by our socialization, which is that you try to argue trust and ability to trust women, because the part of gender stereotyping and socialization is again rooted in our patriarchal upbringing. No, chahe wo judge ho, chahe main hu, chahe lawyer ho, chahe social worker ho, chahe individuals ho, that women do not inherently share the truth, right? So you are basing it on the dicta that women are subjective and men are objective, right? So you have that positivist difference कि आदमी तो ऑब्जेक्टिव ट्रूथ देगा, मैंने नहीं किया, बट विमेन की सब्जेक्टिविटी चेंज होती रहती है. सो हाउ आर women interacting with each other, why is the victim not informing of the rape? देन वो कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ में जब आप समन होते हो तो वो यही आपके एविडेंस आपके अगेंस्ट यूज होते हैं. तो एक सेंस में देखा जाए तो इट इज, यू आर इन अ फॉर्म ऑफ कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ इवन इन योर लाइफ, राइट? लाइक डिड इट हैपन, ओके, व्हाट हैपेंड? And isme, of course, maybe Nainika can add more, is the psychological aspect of when you go through something traumatic, do you even remember in that post trauma what went through you? Like, for example, in the Tarun Tejpal case, if they go through the judgment, oh, but you said this, oh, but you said this happened in the lift, but then something happened outside. Why were you laughing? Why were you laughing with the person? So this is exactly like actually understanding the survivor's mindset, and like how she explains what she's gone through. And also when it comes to court of law, understanding the judges themselves are coming from the very society and hating on women, right? Like they are misogynist and they are coming with language which even Justice Chandrachud recently said he's going to come up with some form of gender glossary, but it is the fact that your language is patriarchal. You are talking about equality before law and equality, equal protection of law, and it's a fundamental right under Article 14, etc. But you are, by the end of it, you're saying things that are like should be treated like that's not what is happening, right? Men are not, men are superior, and that is what even the court of law is showing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Nanika, please speak.
You just said, and that's true, that often in court the issue becomes, and it especially becomes a big issue with cases of historical sexual abuse. How many of the details you get right now? Now, when I talk about historical sexual abuse, I'm talking about things that happened years and years ago, and defense lawyers will often ask things like, "Where did you go after that?" and if you just went to pick your child up from work, then from childcare, then isn't that odd because such a thing had happened? Or they might say something like, what were you wearing on that day? Now, unfortunately, because of the way that our memory works, when something like this happens, it completely plays havoc with the building blocks of our memory, and that is why often people, in order to deal with it as well, they might do something which is called dissociation, which sort of means that they no longer have a connection with the feelings that they're having. And and to be honest, even when I hear about some things, I can feel it starting to happen, uh, and it's quite a normal thing, but as a result of it happening over and over again, it plays havoc with your memory. But even if it happens once, you might not remember all the details. uh, you might not remember if he touched your left breast first or your right breast first, or whether he touched your shoulder first. And often when women can't say these things, then you hear comments from men and women, how can you not remember what happened? But often people actually don't, and it's completely normal not to remember every single detail of an incident. And I don't think courts have come to realize this, and we completely saw that with the Tejpal case, but I've seen it in lots of other cases, that such and such a woman was not a reliable witness because she could not say XYZ. And XYZ might have absolutely nothing to do with the actual assault. But the judge has decided that that makes her a bad witness. And I quite often think that our civil and criminal law, it's not that different from what Sharia law calls for, which is to have 4 male witnesses to a rape. It's not actually that different, because everybody wants either a medical examination after a rape, or they want people to have seen it, or they want a video of it, and this is actually often impossible. So and so people, so judges and juries trying to say that, oh, you don't remember this, it couldn't have happened. This is a really common problem. And the other thing is that if you have PTSD in particular, you will often forget whole parts of the assault completely. And this is why there, for some time, there was a controversy about if all the women who were remembering previous sexual assaults, if they actually happened but we now know that almost all of them, it actually did did happen. It's not as if all these women were imagining it. By and large, it's been it's been found that those cases did happen, and I'm talking about cases in which the women didn't. It's called the recovered memory syndrome, and if people are interested in looking it up, they can. Um, Often, if you have PTSD, a memory might suddenly just come back to you, and sometimes they might be good memories as well. And I think judges don't understand that memories don't work like a computer's memory. There's a lot of interaction in between emotion and memory, and they need to be educated around this, because otherwise they otherwise there can't be justice for this. Thanks.
All right, Shivangi, you wanted to come in, but before Shivangi, I just wanted to make one important point on evidence, which I think I should add over here. So I've been trying to follow some of these. I'm just using the Innocence Project in America as an example, Shivangi, over here, where they fight for falsely accused people who spent 20 years, 25 years in jail, and a lot of times, what I understood, what actually goes off as evidence. In the justice system where they go by memory is not reliable. So uh, while I completely understand that the cross examination that a woman has to go through is actually very gross and unfair, but how do we solve this problem needs a much more nuanced scientific approach, in my opinion. And unfortunately, as of now, science, whether we like it or not, does not have all the answers. Yeah, so Shivangi, you can come in now.
Depends if you see feminist theory as science, right? Kushal, that's a
Look,
different.
look, you know me. I'm friends with you. I will only go by what evidence says. I cannot. I got no God in my life, so you know where I come from.
Yeah. I think when you're talking about the evidence part of it, it also requires a lot of training when it comes to gender-based violence with practitioners and understanding victim narrative and criminal law. So I think that is that part of it, which I know many people are doing in the UK, more so in the UK than the US. I wanted to quickly bring just one more point, which is the difference, which I guess like people keep saying and repeating, is the difference between Western and Indian women. The court has also many a time said, oh, this person is a gold digger woman and behaving like a Western woman. And also to simplify here that for them and for society, the Indian woman then largely either is a Hindu woman, right? Or is believing in any Indian god that is there, is submissive, is, as the court say, pativrata or sacrificial. And the Western woman or anyone who is influenced by the West, and that therein you have words like a feminist or someone who is too forward, you is the other woman, which is the promiscuous, single, not family oriented, rebellious, similar to the good and bad woman. And I wanted to bring this here because the ideas of freedom and equality, then the exercising it in terms of the Western woman, and not deconstructing it and being like there is no binary of Western and Indian women. And just to add, because I read this what Ram Madhav sir had written the Hindutva paradigm. He had one, if I may, like he'd written about. I was reading through his book, and he said like neo feminism has come to represent the negation of social order and discipline, individualism, and rejection of family. So I'm bringing in religion where there's the importance of family in dharma tradition, right? And saying that feminists or Western women are breaking and rejecting the very idea of family structure. Right, so you are having also the court, which is also agreeing and resonating the right wing narrative, right? You're also having the schools, the family, etc., and saying that neo-feminist or anything that's Western is breaking the social order. So we all can sit here and decide like we need more trainings, we need more education at the school level, we have to explain the boys, we have to explain the courts, but somewhere we all have to decide what are we trying to explain, right? Because the if religion is deciding a certain social order and it's anti-woman per se. Then what are we actually then coming down to and being like, this is what we want to propagate? Sorry, I'm just I needed that. Yeah.
No problem. Shiprita, you wanted to say something about some of your favorite movies? What कौन सी favorite movie है अभी? You're not audible, Shiprita. I think we've lost you. So in the meantime, when Shiprita fixes her audio, Joga, you wanted to say something. Come in before we wrap it up.
Sure. Just like as Shivangi was talking about this entire, her last piece, and I just wanted to add to it. Nothing new, but this whole thing, this whole modern how easily what society is doing is it's like brushing things under the carpet. Everybody knows women go through these kind of traumatic experiences day in and day out, right? But instead of sort of addressing it at a social level, it's obviously easier to either brush things under the carpet or create these further divisions. Oh, modern women like you are asking for it. See, all the good women who stay back at home, who are, who are obedient, who are listening to us, they don't go through all this. So as you can see, a lot of you did ask me not to read through the comments, but some of them I did read. And again, this whole narrative that it is a certain type of women who are getting assaulted. No, children are getting assaulted. They are no type when they're growing up, right? As Nayanika said, as I shared my experience, we are no type. We are getting assaulted, and people are asking, such things to be not talked about. It's not good. Let's keep it all. And then obviously once you grow up, it's like, oh, you're too independent. You're too outspoken. So obviously you're asking for it. So this is something I think, apart from obviously, yes, the judiciary is not doing much. They need to pull up their socks. The police needs to do more. But overall, I think somewhere the society, I don't know how, because who sort of leads the society, there's no common consensus, but everybody on their own, men, women who like to side with these men, men who get defensive because they think they are the good men, because obviously they have not done anything like this ever. But fine, I mean, I'm not saying all men are like this, right? There are plenty of good men, we know them. The reason that we exist also because is partly because there are enough good men around. But the fact is that stop getting defensive when we are sharing our trauma, when we are talking about these things, when we are sharing our experiences. And I'm talking about because we end up spending so much time on social media, so I keep on going back to the same point of social media. So when women are saying something on social media, they're sharing their experiences, don't jump in with your defensive stance. Oh, not all men, we do this, we don't do this and all. Are bhai, sun to lo. Are we accusing you of something, or are we saying everybody is doing it? We are sharing it because we want firstly to share it, because that kind of helps us get over it a little bit. And we also want people to understand what we go through day in and day out, and we want more people to help us in this situation. If you're a good man, then sort of stop being defensive. You are good, you don't have to prove it, you just need to help out when it's required. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say for all the touchy people out there. Thanks, Kushal.
Shiprita, is your mic fixed now?
I hope so. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So I was saying that lately we have come across with a lot of feminist movies, which was probably meant to showcase the importance of consent or the feelings of women. While I completely am okay with that, but they have also somehow hit the wrong chord, I guess. lately all these movies, they have been the series on Amazon Prime, I don't remember the name. There was a movie of Kareena Kapoor and this Swara Bhaskar, Sonam Kapoor, Veere the Wedding. All of these have limited a feminist or a powerful women into someone who drinks, who smokes, who has multiple partners. While I am completely not judging any of those girls, but what has this has affected is that I have actually seen people now relating that any woman who speaks about feminism, any woman who actually says that yes, we have the right or we need our space, personal space, is only that girl or that woman who wants to have a multiple partners for relationships, for sleeping with them. That has this I'll say this has actually taken a very completely wrong turn. And now many women or many men actually rather feel that these women actually have come up, they are the same kind of women as shown in the movies, and they will not have any issue with it. They have not taken the actual meaning of the consent, but everything else from there has been taken up into it. I think somehow feminist movies or feminism should feminism should actually showcase the females. It's not only about doing the same things which we consider wrong from the guy's perspective as well. I just wanted to add a few lines on that.
Sure. Okay. So I guess we've covered pretty much everything. I just wanted to read a few things in the end because Smita could not come to the podcast. So she had just sent me these recommendations. So I just wanted to read them too because I think I have a lot of respect for her. So she had said that areas that we should cover. I think we've covered pretty much all of this. Was what kind of people become sexual predators? Is it something to do with economic class, social status, or can a predator come from any class? I think we pretty much established that it is, across class, caste, creed, religion. What makes predators do what they do? You've heard Nanika speak eloquently on that. And then there are multiple reasons like watching violent or explicit porn. This is especially damaging early in life where a person doesn't have the intellectual resources to process what they have seen. Violent porn desensitizes people, increases hostility towards women, and makes such behavior seem acceptable. Abuse in childhood, which could be sexual, physical, or emotional through neglect. General attitudes about women, which could be cultural or specific to a family. Poor impulse control, especially when combined with drug or alcohol use. Poor social skills and issues around intimacy, power seeking, and entitlement. So what basically Smita was trying to say over here was that there is no single factor that can explain sexual predators. That these are multiple variables that are at play all the time, and it goes from one variable to the other variable. So my reason for doing this today was, look, I know एवरेज यूट्यूब का लिसनर बेस, या यूट्यूब बोलता है हमको, मुझे नहीं पता भैया, इज 95% मेन. आई वाज शॉक्ड, लाइक मेजर मेन है. मेरे केस में आई थिंक इट इज 89 पॉइंट समथिंग परसेंट मेन. यूट्यूब बोलता है, मुझे नहीं मालूम. सो टू ऑल ऑफ यू who are going to watch this, I want you to think and listen to what the women had to say very carefully. And again, a lot of people are like, अरे आपने ये बोला, आपने वो बोला, रिलीजन का पॉइंट. मैं आपको कुछ चीजें पढ़ के सुनाना चाहता हूं. सुनो, झेलो. Deuteronomy 22:23-27. If there is a young woman, a virgin, emphasis there, already engaged to be married, and a man meets her in the town and lies with her, you shall stone them to death. The young woman because she did not cry for help, and the man because he violated his neighbor's wife. If the woman is not engaged, the man who lay with her shall give 50 shekels of silver to the young woman's father, and she shall become his wife. This is the Bible, Old Testament. I am reading this literally from the Bible, the Old Testament. नहीं और है Surah An-Nisa 9.34. I'm just using one translation. I could use 4. I'm using the most charitable one, by the way. Men are the caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially. And righteous women are devoutly obedient and, when alone, protective of what Allah has entrusted them with. And if you sense ill conduct from your women, advise them first. If they persist, do not share their beds. But if they still persist, then discipline them gently. Actually, other translations use the word strike them. So I'm impressed with this translation. But if they change their ways, do not be unjust to them. Surely Allah is most high and all great. Don't worry. I'm reading the Manusmriti too. ऐसे थोड़ी ना मैं छोड़ देता था. Manusmriti 2.213. It is the nature of women to seduce men in this world. For that reason, the wise are never unguarded in the company of females. मैं 2.214 भी पढ़ सकता था, मगर मैं चलो सबका एक एक पढ़ा तो मनुस्मृति का भी एक पढ़ा. What I want to say is that I'm not saying religion is the sole reason for this. No. Today we discussed movies, we discussed many other reasons. But if you are a decent human being, what you need to realize today is that, and what hurt me the most, and in fact I shared this with all the women who came today to speak, and these women know me at a personal level. They have spoken with me offline. They know my biggest grouse with the entire subject when it comes to subjects like this is that sexual predators are not left wing or right wing, are not Hindu or Muslim. They exist everywhere. This could have been the one subject where everybody, irrespective of their political ideology, could have come together and dealt with it. But as we saw in the Me Too movement, and this is the first time I'm actually commenting on the Me Too movement, that entire movement also got derailed is because it got into petty political tribalism when it should not have been. But it did. In fact, you heard one of the people who was at the receiving end of that today. So my request to all of you is that don't make your political tribalism so important that you forget you are a human being first. You could be a Muslim, a Christian, a Hindu, or a disbeliever like me, but you're primarily you're a human being first. So don't lose your innate humanity is all I'm requesting. So once again, before I wrap it up, I want to thank all the women who came here today. So from the bottom of my heart, Nayanika, Shivangi, Yoga, Shiprita, Promita had to leave. She had some work. So I want to thank her too. And I want to thank all the women who emailed me. Believe me, your stories remain with me. Some of them were horrifying. When I was reading them, I was speechless. And some boys also wrote to me who were raped. Yes. And trust me, boys, I read your stories too, and I empathize completely with what you have gone through too. And maybe one day I will even talk about that. So before somebody says, अरे तुमने ये कर दिया तो वो क्यों नहीं करूँ, मैं करूँगा, उसके बारे में भी बात करूँगा. इनफैक्ट जो एक बच्चे ने मेरे को ईमेल लिखा था उसमें तो मेरा दिमाग ही काम करना बंद हो गया. इनफैक्ट आई डोंट रिमेंबर, आई थिंक आई हैड मैसेज्ड ऑल द गर्ल्स ओवर हियर about that email. I didn't share the email, but I told them that I got an email like this. I don't know what to do now. But once again, thank you very much to everybody who spoke today, everybody who emailed. My request is only one. I should not be the last person who talks about this. I am not the first person who has spoken about this, and this won't be the last time I talk about this. This was there is a reason to do this. I hope if you're a young kid who listens to this podcast, I hope you take something positive out of it, and next time you see some injustice happening, you raise your voice too. I will leave you guys at that, and I will end today's discussion. As always, keep doing the right thing in life, because your innate tribalism is not what matters. Your innate humanity matters. I leave you guys at that. Take care.